One of the most important topics for any data architecture is that of data modeling. And whether you're in a modern stack or a more traditional one, some of the more common approaches you'll hear about are Inman, Kimball, Data Vault, and One Big Table. And in this video today, I want to talk more about denormalized modeling, which is otherwise known as Kimball modeling, or you might also hear star schema. Those are all interchangeable in this case. So what we'll do is we're going to talk a little bit more about this approach, talk about some of the high level concepts, and actually build out our own little mini version of a star schema in Snowflake. So before we dive in, let's just review again the high level flow of what would be a star schema modeling approach. So we have our source systems. Often they are from different applications or different systems entirely. They'll get put into an intermediate staging layer or perhaps a more long-term data lake, depending on your design, and then modeled into a star schema. The two main components here that we see in different colors are one, what's called a fact table, which we'll talk about. And then the blue ones would be dimension tables. So you have facts and dimensions. And ultimately, all of these are then used for analytics purposes. So whether that's to create a report, display on a dashboard, to send out an email, whatever that is. And having this type of design makes it easy to join everything together and represent these real business activities in a way that your stakeholders want. So the steps here are first, identify a fact, which will be that business activity. Determine dimensions, which will be more attributes and descriptions around a fact. And then third, we'll create the Marts. And the Marts in this case would be things that we would want our end users to interact with more. Okay, so number one, we're going to identify a fact table. And in here I have some notes: low granularity, keys, and numeric values. That's kind of how I think about what a fact table is. And if we look at the notes from the kimballgroup.com, and if you're implementing this in your own company, this is a great resource. They have a ton of information about things to do, different scenarios. There's a lot here. There's a few concepts just to point out. Number one is fact tables are the foundation of the data warehouse. And again, if we look back here, that's what these red, the term fact in this case, meaning this business activity, this business action. And as I mentioned, they're supposed to reflect urgent business priorities, things that have been decided that there is actual use for this activity that we want to report off. Let's not just add everything for the sake of adding it. The other important concept here is to stay true to the grain. The first and most important step is declaring the grain, and that's the definition of what this represents. And on that same topic, you always want to build it where possible at the lowest possible grain. It's easier to roll things up to aggregate a lower grain than it is to go the opposite direction. So that's how I think about it in terms of why you would want to start lower. So in our case, let's say order, or the idea of an order, is an important business concept. We also have a table called orders, but we also have a table called transaction. And if you think about, again, with the granularity, maybe you want to do a fact order table to represent those orders. But another option here is to do a fact transaction table, because you can aggregate transactions up to orders and essentially get the same result. But now you also have a lower granularity, so you can do more, you have more flexibility. That's how I think about it, at least. And just to give a quick peek at what these tables look like, here's the raw text store orders table. It's got some IDs, a quantity, and really not a whole lot here. And then if we look at transactions, this is going to be some JSON data, but within here we have different values. So the amount, as well as the product IDs, quantities, total charge, stuff like that. So there's a lot more information here that we could roll up to an order or to a product. You know, think about it that way. So that's what we'll do here. So let's create a fact table for transactions, and we'll call it fact transactions. And another thing I'll point out here is I have two schemas already built, one for warehouse where we'll put our fact and dimension tables, and then Marts where we'll put one or two user-facing tables to use. So let's start with our fact table here. For sake of time here, I've just copied and pasted in some logic, and we'll walk through it. So in this case, what we're doing is creating a new table called fact transactions. I'm giving the prefix FCT, an underscore, and then the name of what it is. So in our case, we're talking about transactions. And I've flattened the JSON here and renamed it to give it the result that we want. So it would look like this. So we have IDs and then aggregate numbers. So a fact, just to reiterate, you're going to have keys, foreign keys to dimensions, as well as aggregate and numeric information. So we don't want descriptions or attributes in here. That's reserved for dimensions. These will be joined off using the keys to the dimensions. And while we could leave it at this, we also want to be able to join to other things. I mean, we're not just going to join the order ID and product ID. And a few others that we would consider here are employee ID. Maybe that's the main rep on that order or on tied to that transaction. There's probably a customer ID. Maybe there's a location or a city ID. And this is information that I have. And we would want those IDs to live in a fact table because, again, the fact table has IDs and numeric values. And those IDs is what would let us join. So if we add a city ID, a customer ID, we could join it to a table that we'll call dim customers, dim cities, dim product, and it'll all join from this table here. And we can then aggregate it and slice and dice it how we want. So let's go through that. How would we get employee ID, customer ID, and city ID? And like we said, it doesn't have to be one-to-one with the source. This is representing something else. So what we can do here to get these is add some joins. So I'm going to copy and paste this in here again, just for sake of time. And what I'll do here is I'm going to join in from the orders and the customer table on the different IDs. So that way we can get orders.user ID, which we'll call, let's just say employee ID, because that's essentially what it represents. Orders.customer ID as customer ID. And then from the customer itself, city ID as city ID. So now we have a few more IDs. This isn't, and again, this isn't supposed to be perfect. It's just reiterating the fact that in a fact table, you want to store your IDs that are reflective of whatever that activity is. So for this transaction, we're saying here are all the keys that we want associated with each transaction that we can join to. So we have a bunch of IDs as well as strictly aggregates or numeric values. The date field is a separate conversation. You could just add the date here. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you could have a date ID, which would then join to a dim dates table that might be used across different facts. That's outside the scope of this video, but that's another option here too. So let's go with this. Let's create this fact table right here. And another thing to point out here is the term fact and dimension are really just ways of describing a table. So at the end of the day, under the hood, it's just another table. Now, if we look at our warehouse, we have our fact transactions table, and we want to now build around this. So we want to add different dimensions to represent this and create our star. So now we'll go to step number 2, which is determine the dimensions. When talking about dimensions, these are things that are going to be adding context to that fact. And typically that means it's attributes and descriptions, text-based values, dates. It could be a numeric value if it's a descriptive value. Maybe price could be considered a dimension characteristic. It's up to you and your team. There's a ton of documentation on that within here, but these are the general guidelines, attributes and descriptions. You can have a slowly changing dimension, which would mean you have a description that slowly changes over time. For example, office location of an employee might change from one year to the next. How do you handle that change? How do you make sure you have both of them, or do you override it? What do you do? And there's different strategies for handling that. Again, all of which are discussed within the documentation, and you can decide what works best for you. So in our case, for example, we have product, an employee, a customer, and a location, which we'll just say is city. And there's more information here in terms of what would be characterized as a dimension. They're also usually wide and flat denormalized tables. So again, we're able to join things together here that describe that entity. So it's not maybe just city. What we'll do here is we'll add city, state, zip all into one, as opposed to having each individual table to join to. It makes it easier to create that star. So now let's walk through that one step at a time. So to expedite this video a little bit, I do have the create scripts already done, and we'll just review them. So the few we'll do here, we'll create a dim product. And in this case, instead of FCT underscore, we'll do dim underscore. It's just a naming convention. You don't have to use the underscore, but this is a common way to do it and one that I would recommend. So we'll create or replace a dim products table. Obviously, in a real scenario, you'll probably have more information than this, but this is just what I have. And again, here's the idea of price. In this case, price, you probably will aggregate on it, but it's more of a description of what the product is. Next, we'll create a dim employees table. And the employee will do some light transformation so that this table is easy to join with. There's not extra customization that you need to do. So we'll create this table. And I'll also mention, if you're using tools like DBT, this type of renaming actually wouldn't normally be done while creating this table, but you would do it in your staging layer. So if you're using DBT, that's where that idea of a staging layer is going to take care of a lot of this light formatting and renaming. You would do it before it ever got here. But let's continue. Now we'll create a dim customers. And here we're also doing another join. So as I said, these can be wide and denormalized, meaning you can have joins multiple joins within your dim tables that bring it all together to one clear view. So you don't have to do a lot of extra views when you get to this next level. It should be pretty easy. You should be able to join from the fact to the dimension, and behind the scenes here, everything has been denormalized, has been flattened, joined together from the sources to make it easy to work with. So for our case here for customers, we're bringing in employee to have a main rep employee rather than having to do this same join multiple times in the future. So we'll do it once here. The last dim table here is dim cities, which maybe we could have called dim locations. But in this case, again, we're going to flatten this by joining state and zip so that all of this shows up in one table rather than us having to join multiple times. All right, so dim cities is created. Let me refresh this and let's see what we got. I'll put this side by side here. So if we look here, we have fact transactions, which would represent this here, dim customers, employees, products, and cities. And that would be these guys around it. Now you can see there's scenarios where one dimension might join to multiple fact tables, and that's okay. And those are what's called conformed dimensions outside the scope of this video. But for example, cities and products, employees, a lot of these would probably join together into multiple facts. But the way that these joined are through those IDs, through those keys. The primary key of each of these would be foreign keys in here. We're not explicitly calling them that in our example, but I do know that each of those fit that qualification in my example. So we've created our own little version of a star. We don't have dimensions joining to each other. That's something you typically want to avoid. So we've covered a lot so far. Let's now see how we would use this to create some sort of analytics model. And what we're going to do is create what we're calling a Mart, which would be a data mart. And we'll put that in a separate schema and join these together and see what we can do. All right, so the last step here is create marts. We're going to join the facts and dimensions to create custom views. And by views, I don't necessarily mean that an object of a view. It could be a table or a view. And this is where the real power of the star schema and dimensional modeling comes into place, because it allows you to see totals and aggregates sliced and diced by whatever you want, because you can easily join on those keys. So you could see things like total orders by product, by customer. It doesn't matter because you can join them on the keys and just create groupings. So let's create two. The first one I'll do is a total order summary, and this is going to join everything together to give us one cohesive view of all of our orders. And let me just copy and paste the logic in here. Okay, so what we've done here is pulling from the fact as the source and then joining in each of the dimensions to give it attributes. And because these would ideally be really wide tables with a lot of different attributes, you can pick and choose what you want to bring in here. But each of the joins are really simple. They're just joining on the fact transactions ID onto the dimension ID over and over again. And it's really simple. And then all you do is pull in that information. And hopefully that's helping you see the power of this here. So let's just run a select and you can see what this looks like. We can see we have different IDs. We've brought in all of the attributes as well as quantities, and you can make it look however you want. And at that point, this is something you could use for the data source of a report potentially. So let's create this one. So now we have that one. Another example could be, like I said, summarizing things by a certain attribute. So we can slice and dice it. In this case, let's say we want to know revenue by product. So I'll create a new table just for this, but this could be something that you don't even need to create another table. You could just connect these warehouse tables to a tool like Power BI, like Tableau, and create these types of joins within there fairly simply. So what we're doing here is we're pulling again from the fact, we're joining in the products table and then aggregating on the product name and category, but just summing or averaging those attributes, those metrics that live in the fact table. Because again, that's where all of those should live, and just grouping. All right, so let's see what this looks like. So here we can see a nice view of each of these and the aggregations for it. One last refresh over here, and we can see we have our own little star schema as well as some marts built on top of it with very simple joins. And hopefully you can see now, once you have something like this set, and imagine you have multiple facts and lots of dimensions, and it's all purposely designed to work together, how easily you can create all different types of marts and views to slice it up for reporting, for analytics, to make it easy to use. And it gives your team a strong foundation to work with the data, to organize it, as opposed to just going straight from the source to a report. There's that very well formatted, very well designed and intentional intermediate layer of your warehouse. Before we wrap up this video, there's a few other things that I just want to cover. One would be the benefits, the general benefits of this approach. Number one, it's common. It's well documented, as I mentioned, with the website, and just in general, there's a lot of folks who have used this approach. It's time tested. And with that, it kind of leads into number two, meaning it's capable of handling complex scenarios, even in a modern stack. It provides clarity and stability to a data warehouse. And all of this, to me, even though the technical reasons in terms of performance and storage may not be the same as it was in a traditional stack where there was some limitations, to me, this component and this component, regardless of your stack, of how modern you want to call it, this is still important and will be helpful for any team. It just gives you a really solid structure so that you can feel confident on what you're doing. And this is very much of a basic intro to star schema. There's so many different scenarios and topics to cover. Some other ones to consider would be SCD, which is slowly changing dimensions. We kind of hinted on that. Indexing. So if you have different keys, there's a lot of keys involved here. Perhaps you want to create clustered or non-clustered indexes to improve query performance. Conform dimensions, we mentioned, were the ones that are shared. Surrogate keys, if you don't have a true primary key, perhaps you want to create an alternative key to use just within the warehouse itself. They're not necessarily exposed, but they're helpful for joining and things like that. So hopefully this video helped clear up some ideas on what star schema and dimensional modeling is all about. Very much of an introduction, but thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.